Princess Lilia Phrasos of the Kingdom of Phrasos prays fervently, while the sacred spirit of the land lies quietly hidden within her long hair. The narrative pauses briefly as the weight of the kingdom's spiritual history hangs in the air. A gentle, sacred spirit remains concealed within the young maiden's hair, surviving even as the land's ancient blessings begin to fade. Disaster strikes as a massive statue suddenly shatters and collapses, sending the onlookers into a state of absolute shock and panic. Princess Lilia acknowledges that the spiritual spring dried up a century ago, and now it feels as if the spirit's very life force is slipping away. The sudden destruction of the monument leaves the royal court in a state of stunned silence and alarm. Princess Lilia reveals the devastating truth behind her stoic expression. The Kingdom of Phrasos has no money left to its name. A pile of rubble remains where the symbol of their divine protection once stood, marking a new low for the struggling nation. Reflecting on the earthquake that destroyed the spirit spring during her great-great-grandmother's time, Lilia realizes the spirit's blessing is finally running out. The princess understands that the survival of her people and their legacy now rests entirely on her shoulders. Despite the hardships, the people of the country begin praying toward the palace every day at the same hour to support their beloved Lilia-sama. The homeless spirit has barely survived for generations by hiding in the hair of each successive princess, sustained only by the people's prayers. Lilia considers remaking the statue to provide the spirit with a proper vessel, knowing that the people's devotion is its only sustenance. The plan hits a wall when Lilia learns a replacement lightstone would cost a staggering 10 million zenal, a sum the kingdom simply does not have. A glimmer of hope appears when Lilia discovers the wealthy kingdom of Grandania is accepting applicants for a trial marriage. The royal advisors react with visible shock at the mention of Grandania and the unconventional nature of the trial marriage proposal. Lilia hears that several other countries have already applied for this trial marriage, which is essentially a provisional contract between royal houses. Her advisor protests the vulgarity of the mass matchmaking event, warning that if she isn't chosen, she will be sent home in a week. The true motivation is revealed. Grandania will grant every participating princess a massive trousseau stipend of 10 million zenal regardless of the outcome. While the advisor fumes at Grandania's impertinent flaunting of power, Lilia focuses on the fact that they will cover all expenses during the stay. Lilia dismisses the political risks, betting on the fact that Grandania won't actually pick her, allowing her to take the money and run. Arriving at the opulent palace, Lilia is struck by the immense wealth and beauty of a country she never thought she would visit. The upfront stipend has already saved her kingdom, providing exactly enough funds to order the large lightstone they desperately needed. Lilia maintains a calm demeanor among the other candidates, even as she realizes she is one of only 5 princesses present. Surrounding herself with representatives from the continent's greatest powers, Lilia prepares for the scrutiny of the high-stakes event. The other princesses immediately mock Lilia's attire, snickering that her dress looks like a pathetic, moldy antique. Lilia stands her ground, proudly explaining that the garment has been passed down through her royal family since her great-grandmother's time. The rival princesses continue their verbal assault, rudely questioning how many years old the moldy dress actually is. A mysterious and handsome young man enters the room, his presence immediately commanding the attention of everyone in the hall. The room falls into a stunned silence as the 5 princesses catch their first glimpse of the man they have come to marry. The newcomer surveys the room with a piercing gaze, his regal appearance far outshining the opulence of his surroundings. Lilia finds herself momentarily breathless as the man focuses his attention directly on her. The man leans in closer, his expression unreadable as he examines Lilia and her much-maligned, antique dress. To the shock of the room, he identifies the garment as a legendary dress woven from heavenly silk. Lilia looks on in silence as the man's knowledge of her family's hidden treasure changes the entire dynamic of the room. The rival princesses who mocked her just moments ago are left speechless by the sudden turn of events. The man's revelation hangs in the air, shifting the power balance in Lilia's favor. He warns Lilia that she should never sell the dress, as it is a royal treasure that truly belongs to her people. The other princesses are horrified to realize that Lilia's moldy dress is actually one of the rarest and most valuable garments in the world. Lilia is dazzled by the man's radiant smile as he thanks her for honoring them with such impeccable and historic attire. Despite his charm, Lilia's instincts flare up, finding the man's perfection to be deeply suspicious. The man is revealed to be Crown Prince Io of Grandania, the very person who will decide the fate of the participating princesses. Prince Io moves through the ballroom with effortless grace, leaving a trail of nervous and enchanted royalty in his wake. He apologizes for making everyone so tense, flashing another brilliant smile that only deepens Lilia's wariness. Turning back to Lilia, the prince reinforces his compliment, telling her once more how beautiful the dress looks on her. One of the other princesses is so overwhelmed by the prince's charisma that her heart skips a beat. Prince Io introduces himself informally, suggesting they skip the stiff formality for the week they will spend together. The other candidates, Tatiana Churam, Kamika Arambur, and Bronya Talma, introduce themselves, representing the continent's military, trade, and agricultural superpowers. Lilia realizes the terrifying political weight of the situation, knowing that whichever nation Io chooses will effectively dominate the continent. As Princess Kamika collapses from the sheer, stunning handsomeness of Prince Io, Lilia remains the only one focused on the suspicious reality of the situation. Observations reveal a man with unsettling eyes that do not match his smile. A conversation ensues regarding hair that is so long it trails across the floor. The man gazes intently, admitting that the sight startled him but is ultimately beautiful. Focused eyes reflect a moment of intense realization or shock. The chapter marker indicates the beginning of Section 7. Prince Io apologizes for his sudden touch while Safra's companion worries about her reaction after not seeing him since she was 5. A shy Safra is encouraged to stay calm as her companion offers to introduce her to Io-sama. The prince notes with wonder that her hair seems almost alive, prompting a panicked internal, "No." Io dismisses the strangeness, noting that spirits are viewed as mere myths in other countries. The crowd whispers as the prince introduces Safra Shuk, the third princess of a famed tourist kingdom, whom he seemingly chose from the start. Surprised onlookers wonder if he has truly made his choice while the princess hopes to finish the week without incident. A noblewoman questions if the trial marriage partner is meant to be chosen by the end of the week. Prince Io confirms her suspicion with a calm, knowing smile. He boldly declares that he has already decided on his partner. The chosen princess stares back in stunned silence. Various ladies of the court react with visible shock and confusion. Lilia, the first princess of Phrasos, is left bewildered by the sudden turn of events. As the next in line for Grandania, Io officially proposes a provisional marriage contract. He asks if a reason is even necessary while the girl wonders if he truly means her. Anxiety grips the princess as she struggles to keep her true feelings from showing. The prince begins to list his reasons for the sudden proposal. He leans in close, claiming the biggest factor is her long, beautiful hair. Suspicion grows as she feels a bead of sweat roll down her face. She realizes with dread that this prince might be hiding a hidden agenda. Suspecting he is actually after the spirit, she wonders if the entire trial marriage was a setup. Although she wants to refuse, she realizes she lacks any valid grounds to do so. She fears that being too blunt about her poverty or the stipend could spark a war. Recognizing the weakness of her country's spirit, she knows Phrasos cannot afford to make Grandania an enemy. Her long hair flows behind her as she stands in the grand hall. She senses the spirit telling her to stay calm and offers a silent thanks. A tense silence falls between the two as they lock eyes. Io suggests they use the week to get to know one another properly since she cannot answer immediately. He looks directly at Princess Lilia, seeking her final confirmation. The Prince of Grandania formally extends the provisional marriage contract to the Princess of Phrasos. Lilia reflects on the fact that she was chosen as the trial partner on the very first day of the event. That evening, she finds herself unable to sleep in the lavish room she has been assigned. She lies awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling with wide eyes. The sheer wealth of the kingdom overwhelms her, noting the bed is far too comfortable. As the morning sun sparkles through the windows, she wishes her grandfather could experience such luxury to help his back pain. Exhausted by the massive scale of the castle, she decides to rest for a moment. Prince Io arrives, noting she took so long he was about to send someone to fetch her. Observing the prince surrounded by women, she cynically thinks about the perks of royalty. Io pats the seat next to him, inviting Princess Lilia to sit beside him. He claims sitting together will help them bond, while other women watch with jealousy. With a sudden thud, she rejects the offer, stating her intention to stay exactly where she is. Sensing his confusion, she asks if he is upset and explains that her cold behavior is normal. She admits she only got swept up in the moment the day before. With a sharp gaze, she declares that in her home country, she is known as the Ice Maiden. Her cold declaration leaves the prince and the other princesses in a state of stunned silence. She remains wary of a prince who is so skilled at hiding his true thoughts. Princess Lilia maintains her ice maiden facade while being questioned about her chilly reputation. The conversation turns toward her marriage prospects, with others claiming even a prince wouldn't want a cold-hearted woman. Lilia internally reaffirms her identity as the ice maiden to steel herself against the social pressure. A sudden, curious inquiry arises regarding how one might meet a spirit. The mood shifts as Lilia realizes the prince may have been speaking more casually than she initially thought. The prince laughs off the tension, suggesting there is no need to be so cautious around him. Lilia takes offense at his light-hearted demeanor, finding his casual attitude toward her status quite rude. A close-up reveals the prince's genuine and steady gaze as the conversation deepens. He explains that his nation, Grandania, was founded 2 centuries ago by immigrants from Phrasos. A map illustrates the journey of people seeking freedom who nurtured the young, independent nation of Grandania. Lilia reprimands him for belittling his own kingdom by referring to it as merely a branch of her homeland. She proudly declares that her people take pride in staying behind to preserve their ancient traditions. The prince mocks her rigid stance, asking how long she intends to keep up her dramatic act. He finds it rare and amusing to see the Ice Maiden giving such a fiery, passionate speech. Addressing her formally as Ice Princess Lilia, he prepares to offer a gesture of respect. To thank her for the respect shown to his country, he offers to show her something special. A massive, glowing monument of a holy figure is revealed with a dramatic burst of light. Spectators are stunned by the sheer wealth required to power a lightstone of that immense size. Lilia is shocked that she passed by such a massive structure several times without ever noticing it. He explains that while faith in spirits never took root there, the monument remains as a massive landmark. Lilia questions why he is interested in spirits when he already possesses such vast wealth and power. She notices that the statue looks exactly like the one in her homeland, only significantly larger. Clasped hands suggest a moment of prayer, hoping her intentions might reach back to Phrasos. He notes the monument was built by homesick immigrants shortly after Grandania gained its independence. Lilia stands in silent contemplation before the towering figure as the atmosphere grows ethereal. The prince watches her closely, captivated by her rare moment of quiet vulnerability. She begins a formal prayer, addressing the Holy One, and asking how they feel today. A young woman, Safra, watches the scene with a look of awe and dawning realization. Safra steps forward, preparing to perform a traditional movement as the prince observes. Surrounded by onlookers, Safra begins a graceful and sacred dance before the kneeling princess. Lilia watches the performance with wide, sparkling eyes, completely entranced by the movement. The dancer reaches out toward Lilia, the light creating a magical connection between them. The sacred dance continues with fluid, sweeping motions that fill the room with energy. Lilia is visibly moved, her breath hitching as she witnesses the beauty of the traditional rite. She wonders at the strange, overwhelming feeling washing over her during the performance. It feels as though the light itself is filling her soul with a new sense of life. The dancer's hair and garments swirl elegantly in the air as the ritual reaches its peak. The onlookers are left confused and concerned, asking if Lilia is all right after the intense experience. The prince smiles warmly, satisfied by the impact the display had on the stoic princess. Lilia is left blushing and breathless, thinking to herself how truly incredible and amazing it was. The dancer concludes her performance, bowing low before the seated princess. Safra hides her face in embarrassment, overwhelmed by the intensity of her own display. Panting and flustered, Safra apologizes for what she considers an unsightly and overly emotional performance. Lilia rushes to her, grabbing her hands and praising the dance as truly beautiful and charming. The prince teases that Safra is now frozen in place because Lilia got a bit too excited. He asks if her Ice Maiden act is finally over, suggesting the role never really suited her. Safra confirms the dance is a sacred tradition passed down only within the royal family. The prince looks on with a knowing expression as the historical connection between their lands is settled. Lilia is relieved that the previous heavy topic was dropped so easily by the prince. She is left with a lingering thought, wondering if there is more to the prince's intentions. An inquisitive Lilia asks Prince Io if the kingdom of Shuk also has legends of spirits, to which he replies that only a specific dance remains. His retainers note that Prince Io's fascination with anything regarding spirits is impossible to ignore. The prince requests a tour of the castle to see more of the grounds as they walk together. A woman watches them, her inner monologue suggesting she has business here and refuses to be ignored. A close-up reveals the prince's intense, focused gaze as he observes his surroundings. Stopping in his tracks, the prince politely excuses himself as he decides it is time to depart. With an apologetic tone, he explains that he has simply run out of time for the day. His aide reminds him that Lord Shid requested he escort the crown prince to his 3 remaining scheduled meetings. The prince bids them a pleasant stay, telling Lilia to ask merchants for any clothes or jewelry she desires while the crowd swoons over his handsome appearance. The ladies gossip that the king's illness is actually imprisonment and that Prince Io has taken over all state affairs. While some fear he might have killed his own father, others passionately defend the prince, insisting he would never commit such a crime. The conversation turns to the hinterlands and the fact that Grandania's secret intel is likely known by every other nation. A young girl looks on with a deeply troubled and emotional expression. A bitter noblewoman mocks another for acting like a childhood friend even though she wasn't chosen, then decides to head back to her room since the prince is gone. A heavy silence falls between the remaining girls as they stand alone in the corridor. The girl thanks her companion for the previous day, though the other humbly insists she didn't do anything special. She begins to reminisce about Prince Io's personality when they were children. In a flashback, Saphira remembers a kind, smiling boy who shared his many books with her. Lilia is shocked by Saphira's perspective, wondering if they are even talking about the same person given the prince's current demeanor. To Lilia, the prince is nothing more than an unreadable fanatic obsessed with spirits. She realizes the matchmaking event is still active and that the prince only latched onto Saphira's story because of the spirits in her country. The memory of the prince asking Shook for spirit legends resurfaces in her mind. Lilia hopes that if the prince chooses Saphira instead, everything will finally work out for the best. Suddenly, Prince Io appears with a charming smile and asks Princess Lilia to go on a date with him after lunch. Stunned and blushing, Lilia can barely process the invitation for a private date. The prince notes they haven't talked much because she sits so far away, reminding her that group matchmaking ends tomorrow. Lilia reluctantly agrees to get ready while the prince goes to wait by the carriage, though she feels she has failed to change her situation. She reaffirms her desire to stay away from him as she prepares for the unwanted outing. She stares at the castle spires, realizing this moment might be her final opportunity. The prince stands ready, sensing that this is indeed the last chance for something significant to happen. Saphira appears instead, explaining that Lilia feels unwell and asked Saphira to go in her place. Saphira apologizes profusely, admitting she tried to refuse but ended up standing there anyway. The prince accepts the change with a closed-eye smile and asks Saphira to accompany him. The carriage wheels begin to turn as the pair departs from the castle grounds. Lilia watches from the window, relieved that her plan worked because she knew the prince would never refuse Saphira. Though she feels guilty for tricking a worried Saphira, Lilia believes it was necessary to escape her role. She celebrates the idea of being released from the trial marriage if the two of them hit it off. Lilia's relief is short-lived as she runs right into Princess Kamika in the hallway. The unexpected encounter leaves Lilia startled and speechless. Kamika glares with intense hostility at the girl who was chosen over her. Kamika accuses Lilia of using dirty tricks to get chosen, mocking her for coming from a lowly, poverty-stricken country. Lilia stands her ground, calling out Kamika's prejudice that poor equals base, and questioning her elitist attitude. She argues that the prince prefers tradition over a militaristic superpower like Alumpur. Lilia praises the prince for understanding values that money cannot buy, as expected of Grandania's royalty. Kamika is left fuming at the retort as she watches Lilia walk away. The other princesses find it odd that Lilia is here instead of on her date, forcing Lilia to lie about a stomachache. Lilia maintains her stance that Saphira is a much better suit for the prince than she is. The other girls look on with suspicious and judgmental eyes. Belonia calls Lilia unbelievable and childish, while another girl mocks her for being poor despite her seniority. As she walks away, Lilia can't help but feel a twinge of guilt for putting Princess Saphira in this position. As Lilia admires a cute ribbon, the prince offers to buy it for her while dismissing any concerns about Prince Io overturning his decisions. The prince leans in close, telling Lilia she doesn't need to hold back, leaving her flustered and stammering that she couldn't possibly accept such a gift. Gazing deeply into her eyes, the prince asks Lilia to accept the gift as an apology for his previous selfishness toward his future bride. The prince maintains a gentle, knowing smile as he waits for her reaction, his expression radiating calm confidence. Lilia looks away with a shy, blushing smile, clearly affected by his intense gaze and romantic gesture. The scene shifts as Princess Veronia firmly announces her decision to drop out of the trial marriage once and for all. With a formal bow, the princess expresses her gratitude before preparing to depart the palace. Calling the situation ridiculous, Veronia heads home, convinced that staying any longer won't give her a chance at the match anyway. Veronia reveals the embarrassing truth that Freysos is impoverished, despite their attempts to keep the matter discreet. Demanding to leave today, Veronia offers to return the dowry even though the final matchmaking party is scheduled for tomorrow. Before leaving, Veronia coldly warns that she isn't kind enough to offer congratulations to the remaining candidates. She drops a chilling revelation, stating that it seems a revolution is coming to this country. Lilia is left stunned by the ominous warning of anti-monarchist factions, though she notes that her own country doesn't feel like it has such issues. Lilia stands alone in silence, processing the heavy weight of the princess's departure and her cryptic message. A brief narration reflects on the fact that great powers often face rough and turbulent times. The focus shifts back to the present as Safra calls out to Lilia-chan during their outing. Lilia apologizes for being late, while Safra expresses relief and gratitude that she is feeling better. Lilia is shocked to hear there was a citizens' demonstration marching near the palace, questioning if it links back to Veronia's warning. Safra admits that today didn't work out as planned due to the unexpected unrest in the streets. To make up for the failed outing, Safra suggests they plan another date soon to spend more time together. Safra explains they only took a detour to avoid blocking the citizens' march and assures a worried Lilia there is no need to fret. Lilia looks at Safra with a soft smile, thanking her for being so considerate of her feelings. The atmosphere grows quiet as Lilia's thoughts linger on Safra's kindness. Internal panic strikes Safra as she wonders if Lilia has discovered that her previous sickness was actually fake. Lilia smiles warmly but firmly tells Safra not to do that again, leaving Safra startled. The conversation takes a spiritual turn as they discuss how sacred, spirit-bearing hair must never touch the ground. Lilia nearly loses her balance, prompting an immediate, "Whoa there," and a warning not to fall. The two share a brief, tense moment of physical closeness as they steady themselves. The prince takes a firm hold of her hand, ignoring her pleas to let go as he prepares to make a clear statement. He sternly declares that a trial marriage is not merely a game of romance. Lilia looks up at him with wide, uncertain eyes, caught off guard by his sudden intensity. The prince's expression remains somber and focused as he prepares to explain the deeper stakes involved. He recounts ancient history, explaining how some nations once hunted spirits to fuel their own prosperity. He acknowledges that Lilia entered this trial marriage for the stipend because her country's finances have been strained for years. He bluntly clarifies that if she is seeking a spirit's blessing, such a thing simply does not exist. Lilia counters that as a royal, she understands marriage is a part of politics and does not see that as a problem. The prince presses further, arguing that marrying him would cause Freysos to thrive and questions what the real issue is. Lilia stands her ground, asserting that even in a political match, she still believes there should be love. The two gaze at each other in a heavy silence, the clash between political duty and emotional desire hanging in the air. Lilia insists that Safra truly loves him, emphasizing the importance of genuine affection in their union. The word love echoes through Lilia's mind as she considers the weight of her own heart. Lilia looks away, blushing as she repeats the word love to herself. Feeling vulnerable, she tells him to go ahead and mock her for being such a shady person. She immediately regrets her outburst, laughing awkwardly and thinking she shouldn't have brought the subject up. To her surprise, the prince gives her a bright, genuine smile and agrees with her sentiment. The moon hangs over the silent palace towers as the night deepens. Lilia stands by the ornate doors, her face still flushed from the earlier encounter. Lilia finds Safra and tries to apologize for earlier, noting that since tonight might be their last, she wanted to talk. She reaches out to open the door, her hand trembling slightly as she approaches Safra. Safra is startled to see Lilia, exclaiming that her face is bright red and asking what could possibly be wrong. Safra anxiously asks Lilia if she was truly feeling sick, but Lilia quickly denies it. Caught off guard by a sudden, unexpected smile from the prince, Lilia feels completely startled and thrown off balance. She reflects on the initial impression of a man who seemed nothing but rude and arrogant. Safra offers a sincere apology for lying, but Lilia insists that she should be the one to apologize properly. Lilia is delighted by a cute ribbon and promises to treasure the gift. Despite the kind gesture, Lilia politely declines the gift, stating she intends to buy it herself. Safra warmly expresses that Lilia is the first friend she can talk to about everything. Safra admits she expected the prince to choose Lilia because of her royal status, yet she is genuinely glad they met. Tucking into bed, Lilia remains determined to find a way to refuse the marriage, while Safra playfully keeps a secret. Safra notes that Prince Io looks his happiest whenever he is speaking with Lilia. The girls exchange goodnight wishes, though Lilia wonders if the prince is simply amused by her. The quiet of the night settles over the grand chambers of the castle. Prince Io lies awake, a subtle and mysterious smile playing across his face. Princess Kamika confidently declares she will satisfy the prince far better than the scrawny girl from a poor country. Lilia greets the morning sun on her balcony, noting how the spirits dwelling in her hair love the light. She is surprised by an early morning greeting, wondering if she is already being checked on. Looking down, she notices the main hall doors opening at an unusually early hour. To her shock, she spots Prince Io and Princess Kamika together outside the palace. Safra wakes up and finds Lilia already at the window, teasing her for being such an early riser. Crouched in shock after witnessing the intense morning scene, Lilia worries she has seen a walk of shame. The final day of the group matchmaking arrives, marked by a grand celebration throughout the entire castle. Lilia acknowledges her new status as part of a provisional couple, knowing infidelity is unacceptable even in a trial marriage. Prince Io teases Lilia about her Ice Maiden persona, questioning if she is even having any fun. He suggests he might make up a persona of his own, appearing awfully relaxed despite the tension. Lilia stares back with hidden resolve, thinking to herself that she could end this trial marriage right now if she wished. Ministers Zorf and Kike offer backhanded congratulations, subtly insulting Lilia's country for its lack of tradition. The prince maintains a silent, unreadable expression as the ministers continue their chatter. Prince Io coolly notes their words, offering a sharp and formal acknowledgement of their congratulations. The ministers feel much honored by his attention as the formal event continues. Io explains to Lilia that those men belong to his father's faction and that they do not see eye to eye. Lilia looks at him with a puzzled expression, trying to process his political insight. She catches herself laughing along with him, wondering why she is talking to him so normally. A guest suggests that Lilia may think her actions have gone unnoticed, but claims they saw everything. Tension hangs in the air as the conversation turns toward hidden truths. The guest continues to press, asking Lilia if she really thinks she can let her behavior go unnoticed. Prince Io steps in, formally shaking hands and expressing gratitude for strengthening ties with their country. The conversation takes a sharp turn as a new subject is introduced. The guests offer hollow hopes for a happy marriage, despite labeling it a challenge. Prince Io smoothly plays off Princess Kamika's absence, suggesting she might be feeling unwell. Lilia remains silent, knowing she cannot reveal the truth of Kamika's night visit for the sake of the princess's dignity. Io notices Lilia looking pale and asks if she is feeling unwell. The prince and guests stare at her in concern as she struggles to maintain her composure. Panicking over her internal slip-up, Lilia makes a hasty excuse to go get a drink. She spots Safra in the crowd and tries to regain her focus. Telling herself to calm down, she realizes this situation provides the perfect opportunity to act. She resolves that she won't have to drag the spirits into her mess anymore. Despite the clear path forward, a sense of hesitation lingers within her. Lilia plans to leave the country, allowing Freysos to properly decline the marriage arrangement. The weight of her decision settles over her as she prepares for the next step. Lilia confirms to herself that a trial marriage is not a game of romance. Princess Lilia stammers an apology, admitting she was spacing out during the tense confrontation. A stunningly detailed close-up reveals Lilia's wide-eyed shock as she processed the unfolding drama. Princess Kamika stands with an arrogant smirk, her presence radiating a cold and haughty beauty. Onlookers gossip about how the stunning Kamika would make a perfect pair for the prince, though some secretly prefer Safra. The tension thickens as Lilia tentatively calls out Princess Kamika's name. Sensing a shift in the atmosphere, Lilia realizes that something is deeply off with the situation. Kamika boastfully claims that men from every nation would offer treasures just to possess her. Lilia gazes in disbelief at Kamika's hair, realizing the immense value placed upon her appearance. Kamika continues her narcissistic rant, dismissing others as dusty old women compared to her own splendor. The room falls into a stunned silence at the unbelievable sight of a pair of scissors being brandished. Lilia and Kamika lock eyes in a moment of pure, unadulterated shock and confrontation. Kamika's voice turns icy as she demands to know if Lilia is actually daring to defy her. Lilia screams for her to stop as Kamika lashes out in a sudden, violent fury. A frantic struggle ensues as hands reach out to intervene in the escalating physical conflict. Prince Io suddenly intervenes, commanding Princess Kamika to smile and maintain her composure. Io coldly informs Kamika that Lilia's restraint is the only thing that prevented her public disgrace. He mocks her further, asking if she is so incompetent that she cannot even manage a simple smile. Lilia trembles in fear, clutching herself as the psychological weight of the encounter settles in. Prince Io issues a chilling ultimatum, asking what Kamika's pride is worth if it sparks a war between Grandania and Ulampur. Kamika and another noblewoman are left paralyzed with terror under the prince's intense, threatening gaze. Kamika forced a strained congratulation to Prince Io and Princess Lilia before making a hasty exit. Prince Io politely dismisses her, sending his cold regards back to the king of Ulampur. Lilia looks at the prince with a mixture of awe and fear, wondering about the true nature of this man. The surrounding ballroom erupts into applause, oblivious to the near catastrophe that just occurred. Lilia realizes that the prince's charming smile is merely a mask, an armor worn to protect his kingdom. When Io grabs her, Lilia panics and demands to be let go, accusing him of trying to skip the trial marriage. The prince playfully claims his feet slipped, using it as an excuse to pull Lilia closer. Io pulls Lilia into a firm embrace, whispering for her to let him stay like this just a little longer. He admits that he finally let his guard down once he knew she was safe from Kamika's malice. Lilia finds herself lost for words, her heart racing as she remains trapped in the prince's arms. Resolving to keep her dignity, she decides to thank him for the help only once her hands stop shaking. Recalling Safra's advice, Lilia reminds herself that she must eventually find a way to properly refuse him. A comedic shift occurs as the prince teases her about being jealous of his secret meetings. Io leans in close, asking if she truly thought something scandalous was happening between him and another. He explains that while a woman did sneak into his room, he politely declined and sent her away. Io concludes his explanation by noting there is no way to prove his innocence other than his word. He leaves the choice to Lilia, telling her that whether she believes him or not is up to her. Lilia blushes deeply, her internal conflict reaching a boiling point as she stares back at him. Nearby, the elder nobles watch the young couple with amused and knowing expressions. Lilia realizes that rejecting the trial marriage now would give her the perfect reason to escape. She worries that if she denies believing him now, it will change the course of their entire relationship. Though she hates the idea of lying, she struggles to find the right words to settle the matter. The prince laughs off the tension, expressing pure joy that Lilia's hair remained unharmed during the fray. Lilia finally gives in to her feelings, softly whispering that she does indeed believe him. The onlookers comment on how ridiculous the situation is, noting that the trial marriage has only just begun. Observers smile at the pair, noting that despite the chaos, they truly make a striking couple. In the central Tyler district of the capital, Lilia plots to find a reason for rejection that the prince cannot argue against. A newspaper is shown, carrying the latest sensational news from across the kingdom. The headline shocks the public. Prince Io's official partner is the Princess of Phrasos. Commoners gossip that she is a broke princess of noble lineage, yet concede that she is quite cute. Immigrants from the traditional border country of Phrasos founded the powerful kingdom of Grandania, which rose to continent conqueror status in just 200 years. 17 years ago, a 5-year-old Prince Io walks through the palace as the nation boasts that there is nothing it cannot obtain. While the king laughs with his advisors, the young prince watches the display of royal arrogance in silence. The king dismisses high compensation demands for bridge restorations, laughing while his subjects remain bowed before his throne. Observing his father's excesses, Io realizes that a king is not always righteous or fair. The young prince stares out with a heavy heart, wondering why no one else notices the flaws in their kingdom. As people swarm toward wealth and power, the prince observes the nation begin to twist and stagnate under its own greed. A young girl smiles brightly while reading, her innocence a sharp contrast to the political maneuvering of the court. Safra explains the legends of the Princess of the Spirits to a young Io, describing a beautiful world where spirits once roamed. Io listens intently, captivated by the idea of a world so different from his own. He envisions a realm untouched by human greed, while Safra thanks him shyly for his kindness. The prince wonders if a child bathed in the gentle light of the spirits could truly exist. In the present, Princess Lilia leans in close to check on a dazed Prince Io during their carriage ride. Lilia, the princess from the impoverished spirit kingdom of Phrasos, captures Io's full attention as he snaps back to reality. She tells him that resting is a royal duty, surprising him with her blunt but healthy perspective on their lifestyle. Lilia calls him out for spacing out, revealing she knows he went out secretly the previous night. Io playfully defends himself, noting that cheating requires real love to exist first. With a sudden, intense gaze, Io confesses to Princess Lilia that he is serious about her for the first time. The Ice Maiden turns bright red as Io's directness completely throws her off balance. Outside, the public grumbles that the impoverished princess from Phrasos is a burden to the people and a poor choice for a trial marriage. Protesters shout for the abolition of the monarchy, claiming Prince Io was tricked into choosing such a penniless bride. Io and Lilia observe the anti-monarchists from a distance, with Lilia noting their bad compatibility despite her being a normal princess. Lilia calmly accepts that her country's poverty is a fact and finds it good that citizens are free to voice their opinions. Io is struck by her straightforward and firm words, finding her honesty pleasant to hear. They arrive at a Phrasos-style chapel that has fallen into disuse, a place Io hoped would strike a chord with her. As they walk the stone path, Io explains he wanted to take the girl he likes somewhere that would make her smile. Lilia mumbles in confusion, while Io watches her with a gentle, expectant expression. Lilia looks up with a blush, her usual composure cracking under the weight of the moment. She finally thanks him properly for saving her at the party, her hand nervously clutching her dress. In a soft moment, she looks into his eyes and repeats her gratitude. She tells Prince Io she is happy he brought her there, leaving him momentarily speechless. Io stares at her, his face flushing as he is overcome by her cuteness. Overwhelmed, Io forgets to breathe and wonders if his sleep deprivation is finally catching up to him. He realizes Lilia's questioning look is a silent reminder of how close they have been before. He concedes her point but finds himself struggling to maintain his composure. Driven by sudden impulse, Io asks Lilia if he may touch her. Lilia agrees on the condition he avoids her hair, which Io laughs off as a tricky requirement. The intimate moment is interrupted by a messenger arriving with an urgent report. Io's attendant, Sid, waits nearby as the prince regrets the interruption of their good timing. Recognizing the urgency of Sid's arrival, Io prepares to leave Lilia alone for a moment. Lilia frantically tries to pull herself together, telling herself to focus and not fall for the dazzling man. She slaps her cheeks and takes deep breaths, chanting that this is only a trial marriage. While waiting for Io, Lilia decides to walk around the building and follows a mysterious path. She notes that the air behind the chapel feels strangely different and pleasant. Discovering piles of rubble, she wonders what kind of structure used to stand on these grounds. A voice suddenly addresses her, and Lilia realizes a mysterious presence has appeared behind her. A man approaches Lilia, calling it an honor to meet her now that she is finally alone. He asks her to call him a humble citizen, offering a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Lilia asks for his identity, but he seems surprised that she doesn't recognize his face. The stranger bluntly asks why Prince Io chose a princess from a struggling kingdom over those from major nations. Bahim Road observes the political absurdity of the situation while admitting the princess is adorable, only for her to sharply retort that he is merely after the spirit in her hair. Approaching with a smirk, Bahim claims he came to warn her off the record, mocking the idea that a royal would get angry over such a small matter. Looming over her, Bahim warns that Prince Io Grandania is a dangerous man who is far more than he appears to be. He reveals that despite being beloved by the public, rumors persist that the prince wields a dark power behind the scenes. Bahim details the prince's alleged crimes, claiming Io imprisoned the king and left loyal merchant families destitute. The princess stares back unimpressed, demanding to know exactly who these many sources are as Bahim continues his dark character assassination. Dismissing the hearsay, she decides to investigate the claims herself since she is staying at the castle anyway. She points out that while the prince may seem shady, Bashim's entire argument is based on nothing but vague rumors and hearsay. Thanking him for the warning, the princess politely excuses herself to end the conversation. While walking away, she privately reflects on the fact that she also finds the prince suspicious and difficult to read. To her annoyance, she realizes that hearing someone else insult the prince irritates her more than she expected. Bahim panics and insists he has proof, begging for just a moment to confirm his claims. He reaches out to stop her, but his words trail off as the tension rises. Bahim tries to grab her, pleading for her to come with him so they can talk more later. A sharp command to step back rings out as the princess reacts to his unwanted physical advance. The princess fixes him with a cold, unwavering stare that halts him in his tracks. She declares that someone who refuses to even provide their real name has absolutely no right to touch her. Bahim stands frozen, stunned by the princess's sudden and forceful rejection. A sudden burst of mocking laughter breaks the silence as someone else observes Bashim's total failure. The princess and Bahim turn toward the newcomer as the atmosphere shifts dramatically. Prince Io appears with a confident smile, telling Bahim not to feel too bad because even he cannot win against his bride. Io greets them casually while the princess quickly corrects his use of the word bride, reminding him their trial arrangement is temporary. The princess is taken aback when the newcomer is identified as Bahim Road. She searches her memory, certain she has heard that specific name somewhere before. Prince Io confirms the identity, noting that it is their first time meeting in person. A vision of a woman appears as the context of the anti-monarchist faction within the country is brought to light. The narrative highlights that the country currently teeters on the brink of a total revolution. Prince Io confirms the princess's realization with a bingo, identifying Bahim as the leader of the anti-monarchists. The princess realizes Bahim was once a popular presidential candidate who had enough support to split the entire nation. Bahim mocks the situation, stating it is an honor that the crown prince himself recognizes his face. He offers a sarcastic thanks for the recognition, seemingly unfazed by being discovered. Io reveals he knows Bahim well, having even gone incognito in the past to listen to his speeches. The prince ruthlessly critiques Bashim's rhetoric, calling his ideas third-rate bedtime stories at best. The princess watches the high-stakes verbal sparring with an expression of pure shock. Io admits that while abolishing the class system is fine, Bashim's actual plan to fund the transition was completely incoherent. Bahim breaks into a nervous sweat as the prince attacks the core of his democratization movement. Defensively, Bahim asks what Io is basing his criticism on, insisting they would simply overhaul the tax code. The prince offers a smug, knowing smile as he claims to finally understand Bashim's true nature. Bahim demands to know exactly what the prince thinks he has understood. Io patronizingly concludes that he is glad they talked, as he has seen all he needs to see of the rebel leader. He bluntly informs Bahim that he is fundamentally incapable of changing the country. Io suggests that if Bahim just wants cheers from a crowd, he should consider becoming a singer instead. The prince explains that chanting vague words like equality might rile up a crowd, but it won't fill a single stomach. Bahim is stung by the harsh critique, turning his venom back toward the poor princess. He accuses the Grandanian royals of marrying a poor princess just to cosplay tradition and hide their hunger for gold. Bahim glares with intense hatred, determined not to be fooled by the royal family's charade. The princess explodes in anger, telling the prince not to apologize for her and screaming at Bahim for calling her a poor princess to her face. Exhausted by the drama, Io suggests they return to the castle, while the princess reflects on the lovely place he originally brought her to. A sudden, commanding shout for them to hold their position rings out as they try to leave. The princess reminds Io that she said he could touch her, provided he stays away from her hair. Flushed with embarrassment, the young woman stutters through her realization that she actually did say those bold words. Prince Io asserts his dominance by grabbing her hand and declaring they will walk this way outside the castle to curb her recklessness. Laughing at her flustered reaction, the prince notes that his ice maiden has resurfaced while privately wondering if he moved too fast. In a quiet corridor, an attendant calls out to Mr. Bahim as a shadowy figure appears in a doorway. The man approaches Bahim, stating that the timing is perfect because he has something urgent to discuss. Bahim turns with a grim expression, causing his companion to worry and ask what is troubling him. In a dimly lit room, the two men sit down to discuss a serious matter that is weighing heavily on them. At a bar, the men lament that donations have become scarce and no one is attending their political rallies anymore. Desperate for a solution, one of the men asks about the status of the local merchants. With a dejected look, his companion reveals they were flatly turned down despite asking for a large round of donations months ago. The reality of their situation sets in as they realize their operational funds have completely run dry. They report that shops are now trading with the state factories Prince Io revitalized and refused to bankroll anti-monarchists. The messenger advises Bahim not to be stubborn, suggesting it would be wiser to finally side with Prince Io. Tension spikes as a fist slams down, signaling a violent rejection of the suggestion to surrender. Startled, the men quickly clarify that it was the head of the Merchants' Guild who said those words, not them. A man bursts into the room calling for Mr. Bahim, breaking the heavy atmosphere with sudden news. He boastfully reveals they thrashed the state factory workers and torched their warehouse, discovering an office stuffed with cash. Bahim is horrified by the reckless violence, while the messenger realizes this chaos is exactly why the prince was summoned. Bahim erupts in anger, shouting that their actions are nothing more than simple robbery despite their claims of bringing funds. Disgusted by the lack of discipline, Bahim orders the men to turn themselves in to the reasonable Prince Io. A mysterious woman in a lace veil mocks them, sneering at how quickly they wag their tails for the prince. Bahim stares at the newcomer, caught off guard by her sudden and sharp intervention. She challenges Bahim, calling him a people's hero and a revolutionary who should stand against the prince's wealth and power. Inspired by her words and his own pride, Bahim declares he won't yield and vows to drag Prince Io down no matter what. The woman smiles, promising to secure as much money and as many weapons as the revolution requires. The scene shifts silently, leaving the dark room behind as the plot against the monarchy solidifies. In the courtyard, figures move through the shadows under the weight of the city's growing tension. Gazing out a window late at night, a woman observes the chaos and the glow of a massive fire in the industrial district. As a temporary bride, she finds herself worried if Prince Io has even found the time to eat dinner amidst the crisis. She recalls the long line of nobles and factions waiting for his approval, all watching the situation with amused detachment. The woman muses on the deep cracks running through the country and wonders why Bahim seems to hate the prince so personally. In the tense air, she wishes everyone could simply hold hands and navigate the country's troubles together. The thought of holding hands triggers a memory, making her heart race as she dwells on the physical connection. She tries to regain her composure, reminding herself that this is only a trial marriage she intends to refuse. Despite her resolve, she can't stop thinking about the fact that the prince has now held her hand twice. The image of Prince Io leaning in close haunts her thoughts, blurring the line between her duty and her feelings. She struggles with the concept of a spirit's blessing, wondering if such a thing truly exists for their union. Reflecting on her past beliefs, she remains conflicted about the path her life has taken. She considers the kindness of the people and the role of the spirits in what others call a blessing. Suddenly, Prince Io appears at her door, greeting her with a smile and noting that she is still awake. Seeing her flustered state, he asks if she is okay because her face is incredibly red. The prince proposes a new idea, his casual demeanor masking the weight of the day's events. He laughs gently, checking in on how she is finding her room and noting she looks better than expected. With a soft look in his eyes, he asks if he can sleep there with her for the night. The woman is struck speechless, her eyes widening in shock at the prince's bold and unexpected request. Prince Io waits for her reaction, his expression calm and sincere as he watches her. Seeing her panic, he quickly laughs it off as a joke, though the woman remains completely flustered. She looks at his exhausted face and feels a surge of mercy, knowing he has been dealing with the warehouse fire all night. She admits he has a point about the royal line's financial prowess, even as they discuss recovering the lost profits. She realizes that managing the country could be simple if only people's hearts were aligned. Brandania's talent stands out prominently even among the elite, marking a significant presence in the kingdom. Lilia reflects on the current king with a look of mild surprise as a quiet realization dawns on her. With a gaze filled with quiet intensity, she poignantly concludes that human hearts cannot be reduced to simple numbers. A close-up reveals Prince Io peacefully asleep, his features softened by a rare moment of deep rest. Lilia gently watches over him, offering a comforting there as she acknowledges his slumber. Observing his exhaustion, she realizes he likely hasn't slept properly since the previous night and has finally succumbed to fatigue. Her heart races in a sudden panic, leaving her questioning her own suspicious feelings as she watches him. Despite her better judgment, the tired princess finds herself wanting to stay by his side and spoil the sleeping prince. Lilia's thoughts drift to a beautiful man who chose another, leaving her to grapple with the sting of rejection. The humiliation feels like a physical ache, centered on her frustration regarding Kamika Arambor. The princess remains lost in a solemn, quiet reflection as she stares blankly ahead. An intense, shadowed gaze reveals the depth of a character's internal turmoil and focused resolve. Bitterness boils over regarding a thief princess, sparking a vengeful desire to see her brought low. Outside the grand palace, a sudden sneeze rings out alongside a cold vow to make the princess remember her place. A sharp-featured man appears, his expression masked in a cool and professional stoicism. Lilia and Io exchange playful morning banter after she realizes she accidentally stole his duvet during the night. Io teases that she could have woken him, but Lilia admits she couldn't bring herself to disturb such a sound sleeper. The Grand Chamberlain Sid interrupts to announce that the carriage is ready and the requested documents are gathered. Before departing, Io charmingly asks the princess from Freysos if she will miss him while he is out for the day. Io thanks Sid and prepares to review his work during the carriage ride, flashing a confident, handsome smile. Sid observes Lilia with a critical eye, unkindly labeling the simple princess as plain and unrefined. The Chamberlain notes the difficulty for a simple girl to grasp the sheer scale of the Crown Prince's busy schedule. The narrative focuses on the perspective of a princess who has been gently raised within a sheltered environment. Sid looks on with a weary, unimpressed expression as he evaluates the presence of this particular princess. Another noblewoman attempts to bribe Sid, hoping he will put in a good word and reveal Prince Io's favorite color. Sid remains unmoved, noting that the prince is not someone to be swayed by such transparent fawning or bribes. Lilia lightheartedly mentions that her own tutors and chamberlains are just gramps to her, oblivious to the tension. The Chamberlain stands in silence, his tiny silhouette framed by the towering and imposing palace walls. Lilia quickly clarifies that she adores her strict tutors despite their firm and demanding nature. Io tells his provisional bride to simply watch him handle the day's business alone. The prince walks away through a grand archway, leaving Lilia to observe his retreating figure. The prince's character is defined by a hatred for waste and a constant, driving priority for efficiency. A promise is made that the upcoming events will be anything but boring for the observant princess. Ignoring the critical voices of the court, the prince firmly stands by his choice of this specific princess. Sid muses that choosing Princess Saphra would have been much easier to understand for the rest of the kingdom. The focus shifts entirely back to the central figure of the trial marriage, Princess Lilia. In the courtyard, a group of noblewomen approach Lilia with a formal and polite greeting. Countess Kike, the wife of the chief minister, arrives with her entourage to intercept the princess. The countess invites Lilia to visit her newly renovated gardens, attempting to lure her away from the palace. The objective of the faction is clear. Since they cannot manipulate the prince, they aim to win over his bride. Lilia offers a polite but firm rejection, stating she cannot leave without authority during a trial marriage. The countess masks her frustration with a fake pity as Sid watches this safe deflection from afar. Suddenly, the countess cries out in staged agony, claiming her old back injury has flared up. With dramatic flair, the countess falsely accuses the princess of shoving her to the ground. Shocked gasps erupt from the surrounding entourage as the trap is sprung against the unsuspecting Lilia. Lilia is left completely stunned, unable to process the blatant lie being leveled against her. She recalls the instruction to only watch, but the situation has rapidly spiraled out of her control. Sid sighs and facepalms, immediately seeing through the staged scam being run by the countess. Thinking the situation is too much for a country girl, Sid steps in to intervene in the confrontation. Sid moves to gently check her ankles, intending to expose the countess's stiff and fraudulent performance. Countess Kike reels in shock as Princess Lilia confronts her with an unfiltered, close-up intensity. A young man watches the unfolding drama with a wide-eyed, stunned expression. Ignoring the countess's protests of an act, Lilia bluntly identifies her true struggle, chronic back pain. Maintaining a cheerful demeanor, the princess encourages the skeptical noblewoman to simply try standing up. Lilia takes the countess's hand with a firm, guiding touch to assist her. The two women share a silent, heavy moment of anticipation as the countess begins to rise. Lilia explains that tight leg tendons are the culprit, straining the back and demanding more exercise. Astonished by the instant relief, the countess marvels at how her back has straightened as if by magic. While the countess praises the result no doctor could achieve, Lilia warns that she hasn't actually cured her. The princess emphasizes that strong hips and legs must be earned through self-maintenance, not bought with gold. The surrounding noblewomen watch in awe as the once-suffering countess glows with a newfound radiance. In the quiet of an office, a silver-haired royal laughs while listening to the report of the back pain exercises. The report confirms that by enchanting Countess Kike, the leader of the largest faction, the rest of the nobility followed. The royal admits his own short-sightedness, realizing that shared physical pain successfully crosses all political faction lines. He expresses deep admiration for His Highness's discerning eye in choosing such a remarkable princess. Despite the success, the royal notes with a smirk that she still seems intent on refusing him. His expression shifts to a more serious, contemplative gaze as he decides to change the subject. The conversation turns to a protest march in the city that has exploded in scale, nearly becoming a riot. A carriage rolls through a city that now feels fundamentally changed and increasingly unstable. He reveals his concern that the anti-monarchist group, which was supposed to be shrinking, is actually growing. The subordinate is shocked to learn that the royal met with the group's leader, the Bahim Lord, the previous day. He reflects on the encounter, noting that for better or worse, the leader didn't seem like a real threat. Wondering if he provoked the man too much, the royal rests his chin on his hand in deep thought. His companion turns serious, demanding an immediate and thorough investigation into the cause of the unrest. Back in her private quarters, Princess Lilia sits alone on her bed, lost in the silence of the room. Noticing the time, Lilia blushes and feels a surge of anxiety as the night grows late. She stares at the large, ornate doors of her chamber, wondering if he will come to visit her again. Shaking her head to clear her thoughts, she resolves that she won't let him in even if he does show up. A sudden, vivid memory of the royal's face flashes through her mind, haunting her thoughts. Lilia buries her face in her hands, overwhelmed by her conflicting emotions and the late-night atmosphere. With a startled gasp, she reacts to a sudden presence or thought that breaks her solitude. The silver-haired royal stands before her, his presence signaled by a light and airy aura. Caught off guard in her nightgown, Lilia stammers as she asks what trouble has brought him there this time. He explains that the current king is ill, casting a shadow over the state of the monarchy. The royal details the internal strife between noble and state factories that has plagued the kingdom since his father fell ill. Lilia firmly insists that false rumors must be corrected, while he asks if she would prefer the term imprisoned. He offers her a warm, gentle smile, simply agreeing with her righteous perspective. His internal thoughts are more cynical, reflecting that righteous words are often just ideals in the world of politics. He acknowledges the difficulty of ruling a great nation that is currently riddled with cracks and division. Lilia looks down, her face flushed as she absorbs the weight of his political burdens. She reminds him that it is a royal's duty to struggle in private, away from the eyes of the people. He looks at her with a piercing, somber gaze and asks who is left to worry about her in return. Lilia is momentarily silenced, a single flower petal drifting by as the tension between them thickens. He breaks the silence by offering to walk her back to her room, stating he shouldn't bother her any longer. Concerned by her sudden lack of response, he asks if something is wrong with the princess. Lilia quickly tries to hide her flustered state, insisting that absolutely nothing is the matter. A close-up reveals her wide-eyed, startled reaction to an unexpected movement or realization. Her hair flows around her in a soft, ethereal blur as the moment reaches a peak of intimacy. She gasps in surprise as the boundary between them is suddenly crossed. The royal looks on with a stunned, frozen expression as Lilia turns away, leaving the air between them charged. Princess Lilia stares in shock as a mysterious light suddenly manifests, questioning why this phenomenon is appearing now of all times. Prince Io observes the fading glow and wonders if he just witnessed the presence of a spirit. Trembling from the encounter, Lilia realizes with a jolt of fear that the prince definitely saw the light. Io reveals his true objective is the legendary spirit's blessing hidden within Lilia's long hair. Lilia desperately tries to deflect his interest, insisting that she possesses no special powers despite appearances. She reflects on how she has lived without any spiritual abilities for a very long time. The prince watches her closely, his gaze intense as he processes her denial. Lilia explains that spirits can barely exist even with everyone's prayers, questioning if those prayers are the source of their energy. Desperate to hide her secret, she begs the prince to simply forget everything that just occurred. Prince Io leans in close and asks softly if she is truly okay with that request. Looking directly into her eyes, the prince declares that he will start offering his own prayers as well. Lilia flushes a deep red as the prince calls out her name, her heart racing at his sudden proximity. Symbols of affection and continuity fill the air as the tension between the two reaches a breaking point. The two remain locked in an intimate, silent moment as they lean toward one another. Panic surges through Lilia as she inwardly screams, "No," while the prince closes the distance. Prince Io takes her face in his hands, forcing Lilia to realize she must get away from him immediately. She reminds herself that Prince Io is only after the spirit's blessing, not her actual self. Her hand presses against his chest as she experiences a confusing and overwhelming physical sensation. Io pulls back slightly and asks with a hint of concern if she hated the contact. Lilia touches her lips in a daze, realizing his mouth grazed hers just a little bit. Hiding her face in her hair, she shyly confesses that she didn't actually hate it. The prince apologizes, admitting he took unfair advantage of how flustered she was. Lilia worries that he overheard her muddled thoughts about the kiss as he asks her to repeat herself. Her face remains bright red as she struggles to regain her composure after the shock. Lilia claims her legs have given out, prompting Io to offer his shoulder for support. When she remains immobile, Io decides to simply carry her since she cannot walk. He playfully dismisses her protests, insisting on helping her right now. Io carries her through the castle corridors, noting that only the night guards are awake to see a prince carrying someone like this. Lilia apologizes for being a burden, but Io reassures her with a smile that it isn't a problem at all. He suggests that if she can't sleep later, he has other business to attend to first. Lilia wonders if he is pushing himself too hard, but when he asks what she said, she stays silent. They exchange awkward goodnights as Lilia dwells on his mysterious mention of other things. Back in her room, Lilia freaks out over the earlier encounter and the spirit's sudden appearance. She can't stop replaying his promise to pray alongside her in her mind. Exhausted by the emotional roller coaster, she collapses and yells in frustration. She admits her prejudice led her to believe he was just a shady spirit chaser, but his actions are making it hard to maintain that view. Lilia decides she will be a little kinder to him tomorrow, realizing she naively let her guard down. The prince walks away alone, while Lilia reflects on her status as a bona fide country bumpkin. Io stands before a massive statue, deep in thought about the night's events. He gazes up at the architecture, contemplating the true nature of the spirit's blessing. The sun rises over the grand towers of the castle as a new day begins. Lilia greets Countess Kike and the other ladies with a polite smile during a daytime gathering. The ladies react with dramatic flair to Lilia's appearance, gasping in collective shock. They gush about the wonders of love while Lilia worries about her careless behavior from the night before. The Countess exclaims that Lilia's hair, skin, and eyes are all literally glowing. Stunned by the observation, Lilia can only utter a confused "pardon." The group begins a dramatic prayer, hoping the trial marriage proceeds to a happy outcome. The ladies bow their heads in a performative display of spiritual devotion. Lilia thanks them awkwardly, noting to herself that everything becomes theatrical when Countess Kike is involved. Despite the support, Lilia remains conflicted, knowing she still plans to eventually refuse the marriage. Princess Lilia learns that her trial marriage was personally pushed by Prince Io, who even declined a royal engagement with Princess Kamika of Arambur to make it happen. The princess stands in stunned silence as the weight of the prince's personal choice and political sacrifice sinks in. Her wide-eyed expression reveals a mixture of shock and confusion over why the prince would favor her over a more advantageous match. Countess Kike enters the room, noting Lilia's surprise and clarifying that the Arambur princess mentioned is indeed Princess Kamika. The countess reveals that Prince Io wasn't just following the king's wishes but changed his mind after learning of Lilia's true character. Dismissing the heavy topic, the countess encourages Lilia to focus on her physical exercises while privately wishing the girl hadn't learned the burden of the truth. Lilia focuses on her training, pushing herself through deep stretches to distract her mind from the royal drama. An attendant approaches the preoccupied princess to ask if she would like to meet with the prince. The scene shifts to a tense atmosphere where two noblemen exchange a silent, knowing look that hints at underlying palace intrigue. Lilia asks with concern if the prince is returning to the castle today, her mind clearly fixed on his recent absence. The attendant reports that the prince only returned briefly in the afternoon before heading out again, leaving Lilia disappointed. She reflects on the fact that this is the first full day they haven't crossed paths since her arrival, wondering what could be keeping him so busy. Lilia clutches her chest as a soft hope begins to bloom within her, despite the uncertainty of their situation. She finds it absurd that the prince lives in such a grand, vast palace yet seems unable to find a single moment of rest. Worrying about his health, she questions whether he is even eating properly or getting any sleep at all. She recalls a warm memory of the prince's gentle smile and wonders how he would react if she voiced her concerns to him. The memory of his kindness causes her to blush, her heart fluttering at the thought of his dedicated nature. Lilia struggles with the logic of a political marriage, thinking Princess Kamiko would have benefited the nation far more than she could. She finds herself unable to stop thinking about a specific, intimate moment they shared, questioning why it lingers so vividly in her mind. A deep, unspoken desire starts to form as she realizes what she truly wants from this arrangement. Looking out over the balcony, Lilia acknowledges that Prince Io is no longer trying to exploit her spirit, making his choice of her even more mysterious. Her heart races with sudden realization as she admits to herself that what she truly wants is simply to see Prince Io again. She reflects on their time together, realizing she has grown to enjoy their silly arguments and the moments they spend laughing or annoyed. Knowing her grandfather Ji would faint at her changing heart, she decides to view this trial marriage in a more positive light. A few days pass in anticipation until the moment finally arrives to see Prince Io once again. As she prepares for the meeting, Lilia's nerves take over, her heart pounding at the thought of facing him after her realization. She stands before the grand doors of the palace, taking a deep breath to compose herself for what is to come. An attendant announces that she is back at the audience hall, the very place where her journey began on her first day. 3 days later, a servant formally announces that His Highness the Crown Prince is waiting for her. Seeing his serious expression, Lilia asks if something is wrong, sensing a shift in the prince's demeanor. The prince looks down, his face partially obscured, as a heavy silence fills the space between them. The large doors of the audience chamber swing open, framing the princess as she enters the room to meet her fate. She stands alone in the center of the hall, the doors closing behind her to seal her in with the prince. Prince Io looks at her with a piercing, unreadable gaze that seems to search her very soul. Lilia is momentarily blinded by his presence, thinking how dazzling yet mysterious his eyes appear in the light. The narration identifies her formally as First Princess Lilia Freysos, highlighting the weight of her royal title against his cold gaze. In a shocking turn of events, the prince declares his intent to dissolve their trial marriage immediately. Meanwhile, in the Grandania royal capital, workers at a state factory discuss their steady jobs and decent working conditions. One worker praises Prince Io as the real deal, admitting he thought the factory system was just a young prince's whim. The conversation turns dark as a rumor surfaces that the prince has been caught up in a spirit scam. Men gossip about a woman from a country with spirits, who is allegedly conning people out of millions of zenal. They mockingly refer to her as the poor princess, blaming her for the alleged corruption. The workers grumble that their hard-earned taxes are being wasted and that there were better princesses to choose from. A shady figure asks the workers if they are willing to join a fight against this perceived royal injustice. The agitator claims that profits are being siphoned from the state factories and warns that the country is done if the poor princess becomes queen. He incites the men to raise their voices and drive out the princess who is supposedly devouring the country. The mastermind behind the unrest tells them to gather under the name of Barsham Road. Plans are set for a massive demonstration the following day, intended to bring friends and supporters to the streets. The conspirators gloat over how easy it was to pitch their lies to the disgruntled workers. An angry mob gathers outside, chanting for Prince Io to hand over politics to Barsham Road and to cancel the trial marriage. A young boy falls hard onto the cobblestone street, crying out in pain as he hits the ground. A mysterious voice warns him to get up quickly before the bustling crowd accidentally steps on him. Trembling and tearful, the child looks up to see his father standing over him, demanding he stand up immediately. The father sighs in relief to see the boy is safe, while a man nearby asks Abby if she is all right. A hooded girl kindly advises the boy to hold hands tightly to avoid getting separated in the massive crowds. The boy stammers a confused reply to his father while the girl thanks a gentleman for stopping the carriage. Lilia realizes with surprise how many people oppose the marriage, noting that news of the annulment hasn't spread yet. Lilia reflects on her recent decision and the firm desire to dissolve the trial marriage. She breathes a sigh of relief inside the covert carriage, acknowledging that traveling openly would have been far too risky. Looking back, she remembers how Prince Io held her, recalling that only days ago she intended to be the one to refuse him. Having arrived at the Grandania royal domain in Hagani, she hopes the hard-working prince is finally getting some rest. Lilia marvels at the lively atmosphere of the resort, famous for its high-quality spas and just hours from the capital. Examining the guidebook provided by the coachman, she feels a mix of gratitude and irony at the souvenir coupons included. Lilia braids her hair and wears a cute ribbon from Safra, hoping to blend in while she prepares to head toward Freysos. She turns around suddenly as if sensing someone watching her from across the decorated square. A young woman stands frozen in shock, her eyes wide as she spots Lilia in the crowd. Lilia stares back with equal surprise, her face flushing as they recognize each other. The two girls stand face to face in the bright sunlight as Lilia calls out Safra's name in disbelief. The scene shifts to the imposing and cold atmosphere of the Alampur royal palace. Inside the grand throne room, the king and queen sit in silence, awaiting a report. A messenger informs the royals that the Grandania prince has officially annulled the trial marriage due to public protests. The king sternly asks for confirmation of the news, receiving a sharp and immediate yes in response. A woman with a devious smile reports that Princess Lilia was seen leaving the castle that very morning. She breaks into a mocking, high-pitched laugh, delighted by the princess's misfortune. Kamika gloats that her bribe to Barsham Road paid off, though she regrets not seeing Lilia's tearful face in person. She dismisses the Grandania prince and suggests inviting the pauper nation to her own wedding to Prince Io to show off their superior status. Her eyes bulge with a sudden, intense focus as she contemplates her next move. Her father interrupts her gloating to declare the matter finished, praising her only for covering up her initial failure. He asserts that blocking the Grandania Freysos marriage was the only goal that actually mattered. The king's face darkens as he warns her not to stay entangled with that country or poke a sleeping beast. Kamika attempts to protest, insisting that this time things will be different between her and Prince Io. The king shuts her down with a cold stare, demanding to know if she understands his command. Back at the resort, tea and cake are served in a serene setting, contrasting the political turmoil elsewhere. A character watches the surroundings carefully as the shadow of the king looms over the narrative. Someone screams in total shock, their voice echoing through the resort buildings as they learn of the annulment. Lilia frantically tries to quiet the person, holding a finger to her lips while blushing furiously. Safra demands to know if Prince Io really said it, while Lilia notes the matter is private despite news being everywhere. Safra and another princess are already enjoying the spa, noting the high quality of the leisurewear provided. They explain they came for a private party after the mixer, wanting to experience the famous Hagani spas for themselves. Lilia stands stunned by the sheer coincidence of running into all of them at the same resort. Princess Bronya looks down her nose at Lilia, demanding to know what blunder she made to get tossed out after being chosen. Lilia admits how embarrassing the situation is, while Safra and Princess Tatiana insist on hearing the full story. Lilia explains that anti-marriage protests grew so large they were actively hindering national politics. She recounts the prince's explanation that an immediate annulment was the quickest way to calm the public. She remembers the cold finality of being told to pack her things and leave the castle by the next morning. The other princesses stare at her in stunned silence, absorbing the harsh reality of her dismissal. They immediately rally to her side, insisting that none of this was Lilia's fault. The group turns on Prince Io, calling him heartless and shady, while Lilia tries to calm their rising anger. Lilia looks at her friends, appreciating their support even though the situation remains difficult. She stands in the soft light of the resort, her expression a mix of lingering sadness and newfound resolve. A haunting question hangs in the air as Lilia is asked if she is truly okay with the current situation. Lilia's eyes well with tears as she faces her companions, her expression a mask of quiet heartbreak. Struggling with the weight of her decision, Lilia admits she cannot allow herself to be the cause of Grandania's ruin. She reflects on the fragile state of the nation and the desperate struggle Prince Io undergoes to protect its cracked foundation. The girls react with concern for Lilia-chun, realizing the depth of the emotional turmoil she is hiding. Deciding that a spa treatment is the ultimate cure for heartbreak, her friends insist she get oiled up and pampered. The group discusses the amazing treatments at the spa, though one friend hilariously realizes she has no money on her. A massive close-up captures Lilia's stunned face as the word heartbreak echoes in her mind. She begins to realize that the sharp pain in her chest finally makes sense if the diagnosis of a broken heart is true. A fleeting memory of Prince Io's gentle smile flashes through her mind, heightening her sense of loss. The realization finally dawns on her with a quiet, internal admission of what she has been feeling. While soaking in a rose-filled bath, Lilia finally confesses to herself that she was indeed in love with Prince Io. By noon the next day, shocking news of the annulment spreads to Hagani, announcing the split between Prince Io and the Freysos princess. Townspeople gather in the streets, anxiously reading the latest extras about the royal separation. Near a waiting carriage, the group prepares for their departure as the news continues to circulate. They decide it is best to head back to the manor now that the official announcement has been made. Prince Io appears beside Lilia, noting that the major ruckus regarding their split was mostly confined to the capital. Lilia looks on in silence, her gaze fixed as she processes his sudden presence. A lingering sense of uncertainty remains in the air as they stand together outside the castle walls. Io admits with a smile that he is a little jealous of how people naturally seem to gather around Lilia. Lilia stares up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of confusion and lingering affection. Io begins to adjust his glasses, hesitating as he prepares to explain the reason for his visit. Startled to see him there, Lilia calls out his name in utter disbelief. Prince Io reveals the truth behind his appearance, stating simply that he came to take her back. The two share an intense, silent moment of connection, the air thick with unspoken emotions. Lilia's protective friends immediately intervene, hilariously forbidding Io from getting any closer to her. The prince holds up his hands in a defensive gesture, trying to calm the sudden feminine fury directed at him. Over tea, the group is shocked to learn that the annulment was a setup to expose foreign money flowing to anti-monarchy groups. The conversation takes place outside a charming building adorned with an elegant scripted sign. Io explains that he hoped the mastermind would reveal themselves if he went through with the annulment as requested. Her friends scold him for his kindness, questioning if a public annulment wasn't a bit too passionate and extreme. The gravity of the situation settles in, acknowledging that voiding a national marriage pact as a play is truly outrageous. As the first princess of Freysos, Lilia finds it difficult to easily forgive such a massive political deception. The tension is suddenly broken when someone mentions a nail appointment, catching the group off guard. The girls insist on going along for the spa treatment, dragging the conversation back to beauty and relaxation. Despite her royal pride, Lilia feels a secret sense of relief wash over her. One of her friends whispers playfully that she is just glad Lilia's condition wasn't actual heartbreak after all. Lilia reacts with a flustered expression, her face turning bright red at the suggestion. As the group prepares to head out, Saphra is called out to lead the way to their next destination. The group walks through the festive, flag-lined streets of the town under the bright afternoon sun. Lilia asks tentatively if their current proximity is okay given the public news. Io chuckles, noting that because they were reported as annulled, no one will even think to notice them together. The pair finds a moment of quiet together at an outdoor cafe nestled against a stately building. Lilia looks on with a questioning gaze as Io reaches out his hand toward her. He insists that outside the castle, they must hold hands, gently demanding her cooperation. Io teases her with a smirk, claiming she is far too easy for someone to snatch away. Lilia's face flushes a deep crimson as she stares at him, completely overwhelmed by his boldness. The two link hands firmly, a silent pact formed between them despite the official end of their engagement. Overcome with embarrassment, Lilia stammers that such intimacy was only allowed before the annulment occurred. Reflecting on the situation, Prince Io acknowledges that it is only fair Lilia won't forgive him so easily. Blushing deeply, Lilia struggles to find the right words and insists she didn't mean things to come across that way. Lilia remains preoccupied by Princess Saphra's previous words and finds herself unable to stop thinking about them. Worrying about her past behavior, she wonders what kind of expression she wore while standing by his side. Lilia continues to fret over her previous tone of voice while the two of them browse a street menu together. Her anxiety manifests physically as she notices her own heartbeat sounding incredibly fast and loud. While sitting and eating cold snacks, Lilia admits to herself that taking it easy for once is actually quite exhausting. Io admits that he could not tell her the truth himself because he was drunk and doubted her political resilience. He confesses that despite his earlier state, most of what he told her at the shop was actually true. Lilia looks on with a somber expression as she processes his honesty. A flashback reveals a rowdy crowd demanding that a spirit scammer pay back a loan and leave immediately. Prince Io explains that catching the mastermind behind the protests is more important than simply quelling the noise. Lilia is shocked when Io asserts that citizens aren't puppets and should be allowed to protest the system. Looking down, Io begins to explain his reckless actions, but his voice trails off into an uncertain silence. He clarifies that he wants to catch the faction that incited the anti-monarchy sentiment because they damaged her honor. A gentle moment passes between the two as Io begins to change the subject. Io points out that her ice cream is melting and asks if she is all right. He reaches out to tell her she has a bit of the sweet treat on her cheek. Suddenly, a loud sound startles them, causing a momentary panic. In a clumsy accident, the ice cream cone falls to the ground, leaving Lilia shouting in dismay. Lilia lets out a frustrated cry as she stares at the wasted food on the pavement. Io offers to buy her another one, but Lilia is too flustered to eat calmly and tells him not to bother. The two share a quiet, intense look as the mood shifts again. An older man with a stern face suddenly appears from a nearby carriage, shouting for their attention. Lilia is intimidated by the man's pitch-black aura while Io casually greets the man as Jylan. Jylan demands they get into the carriage immediately, noting he was planning to visit them later anyway. The group sits inside the carriage in a tense, awkward silence. Lilia wonders if it was truly wise to hop into the vehicle just because Jylan told them to. Lilia prepares to introduce herself, keeping royal etiquette in mind. Adopting a formal posture, she introduces herself as Lilia Freysos to the elegant woman sitting before them. The woman coldly brings up rumors that the arrangement with the Freysos princess had been annulled. Lilia stares at the woman, who carries herself with an air of absolute authority. Lilia is momentarily transfixed by the woman's striking presence. The woman maintains a stern, unreadable expression while looking directly at Lilia. She notes that news travels fast but clarifies that the arrangement is technically only under temporary suspension. Lilia is completely dazzled by the woman's beauty, internally screaming that she is gorgeous. Prince Io smiles and explains that he is currently begging for Lilia's forgiveness for various reasons. The woman sighs, stating that while any princess will do for a political marriage, there are other factors. Io drapes an arm around Lilia and cheerfully mentions that his mother believes love is necessary even in politics. Lilia is completely stunned, barely able to process the revelation. She screams in shock as it finally sinks in that she is meeting the queen. In another setting, Safra and her friends admire their matching nails, calling them cute. The three girls pose together, showing off their fashion and accessories. They gossip about Prince Io and Lilia's sightseeing in Hagani, wondering if they are doing more than just walking. Princess Safra worries for Lilia, hoping her friend is doing okay during the trip. Safra recalls meeting the current king when she was only 5 and asks what he is like now. Rumors swirl that the king was driven from the public stage by illness and is now recuperating in Hagani. Safra finds it hard to speak about the situation, noting the sensitivity of the king's status. Despite her worries, Safra cheers for Lilia, hoping her friend stays strong. Lilia laments her embarrassing exit, explaining she started crying in front of the queen and had to be escorted out. Lilia gazes at the magnificent estate, still overwhelmed by the grandeur of the royal surroundings. The queen watches with a sharp, calculating gaze from the shadows. Lilia regrets that she only managed to introduce herself before her emotional outburst. The queen remains silent, her profile showing a mix of stoicism and hidden thought. She asks Prince Io if he has considered the texts he requested in his previous letter. Lilia is confused by the mention of these mysterious texts. The queen reminds Io sternly that he is not the king yet. Io listens to his mother with a calm, patient smile. Lilia watches him, noticing a shift in the atmosphere. The truth about the king's serious condition begins to dawn on Lilia as she observes the royal family. A grim image of the king in a state of delirium highlights the severity of his illness. Prince Io, the only son, stands by his father's side without saying a single word. Lilia observes the heavy silence between the prince and his ailing father. She stands frozen, wondering what kind of expression Io is hiding behind his calm exterior. Despite the heavy atmosphere, Lilia offers her sincere and heartfelt thanks. Princess Lilia makes a historic visit to Hagani, a trip so significant that the current king is said to be immensely pleased. Accompanied by the smiling Jylan, Lilia is shocked to learn she is the very first visitor to the estate since its establishment. A frantic elder informs the group that the guest room is prepared, while a stern warning is issued about oversharing to avoid the queen's scolding. Lilia reflects on the comfort of finding familiar, retainer-like people in Grandania, though the atmosphere remains heavy with unspoken rules. Jylan is described as a highly capable man whose only real flaw is his tendency to be a bit too noisy. Jylan's history is revealed as a loyal servant who followed the queen from her home country upon her marriage and now manages the estate. Lilia processes the fact that the queen herself is a foreigner, hailing from an entirely different nation. Imagining a romantic retirement in seclusion, Lilia is quickly corrected by the reality that the royal couple lacked such sentimental feelings. The marriage was strictly a cold political agenda, with the parents rarely speaking to one another about anything outside of state affairs. Lilia acknowledges the complexity of family matters within great nations as she takes in the imposing architecture of the villa. The internal struggles of the royal family are noted as bewilderingly complex and difficult to navigate. Finding the guest rooms as luxurious as the royal castle, Lilia sinks into a fluffy bed to recover from the day's strain. An apology is offered for the strain Lilia has endured during the transition to the estate. Lilia realizes that despite the power differences between Grandania and Freysos, even a political marriage is better served with love. Blushing deeply, she recalls Prince Io specifically mentioning the word love during their previous conversation. Lilia tries to shake off her giddy grin, desperately telling herself there is no way the prince meant anything personal. She convinces herself his comment was just a general statement and certainly not a confession of love for her. A summons arrives, informing Lilia that Her Majesty the Queen is currently awaiting her presence on the terrace. Approaching with trepidation, Lilia wonders what business the Queen could possibly have with her at such an hour. The Queen issues a singular, commanding order for Lilia to take a seat. The two women sit in silence on the moonlit terrace, surrounded by the quiet elegance of the night. Lilia admires the Queen as the ideal noblewoman but feels the ice-cold aura emanating from her presence. The Queen's sharp gaze remains fixed, her expression unreadable as she prepares to speak. Declaring that it is better to watch and do than to study, the Queen signals the start of a sudden event. A massive firework explodes in the night sky, illuminating the terrace where the two women sit. Lilia looks on in absolute awe, her eyes wide as she witnesses the spectacular display for the first time. The dark sky is filled with bursts of light as the exhibition continues. Radiant sparks cascade downward, creating a vibrant pattern against the black backdrop. Breathless, Lilia asks what these beautiful flowers in the sky are, only to be told they are called fireworks. She marvels at the unique customs of this country that allow such beauty to exist. The Queen remains stoic, watching Lilia as the girl notes how flowers can truly bloom in the night sky. Lilia reflects on the strange turn of events, from being heartbroken the previous night to sitting beside Prince Io's mother now. As they watch the display, the Queen abruptly asks Lilia what she truly thinks of her son Io. Lilia is caught off guard by the personal question, her gaze lingering on the Queen. The Queen mentions the fireworks are a nightly specialty she missed before due to a heated debate regarding a man's annulment. Coming in hard and fast, the Queen demands to know if Lilia was the one who claimed love is necessary in a political marriage. Blushing and shrinking back, Lilia admits that she did indeed say those words. The Queen's mouth sets in a firm line as she prepares to deliver a harsh judgment. The Queen declares that a princess who prioritizes love and romance is inherently flawed. She ruthlessly states that such a romantic mindset makes Lilia completely unfit to marry the heir of Grandania. With her cold decree delivered, the Queen retreats back into the beautiful but dark night. The final ultimatum is given. If Lilia truly loves Io, she must break off the engagement of her own will. Lilia is left alone on the terrace, stunned and reeling from the Queen's devastating demand. The vast, silent landscape stretches out before her as she sits in the aftermath of the conversation. A soft voice calls out to her, breaking the oppressive silence of the terrace. Prince Io appears before her, his expression concerned as he finds her alone in the dark. Lilia looks up in shock, her eyes reflecting the turmoil of the Queen's recent words. Io notes that the fireworks are over and asks if she is all right. The prince stands close, his presence a sharp contrast to the coldness of his mother. He looks at her with a gentle, questioning smile, unaware of the ultimatum just delivered. Io expresses surprise that his mother invited Lilia to watch the fireworks herself. He explains that he wanted to join them, but Jylan stopped him to ensure they had time together. Lilia agonizes internally over whether she should reveal the Queen's harsh words to the prince. To her surprise, Io compliments her, calling her truly amazing. He credits her for bringing the other princesses together, noting that he wouldn't be close to them if not for her. Lilia humbly tries to dismiss it as a coincidence, but Io remains certain of her impact. He tells her directly that she has a natural way of captivating everyone around her. Lilia looks at him, overwhelmed by the praise from the man she is being told to leave. The prince's gaze is soft and full of affection as he speaks to her. She thinks to herself that he is being sly and unfair for being so charming at such a difficult time. A sudden, sharp realization or sound causes the prince to react with surprise. Lilia lets out a small gasp as the physical distance between them closes. Their hands meet in the moonlight, a silent moment of connection amidst the political chaos. Flustered, Lilia stammers an apology, claiming her hands simply got caught. Io looks at her intently, thinking to himself that she is incredibly soft and sweet. Lilia's face flushes a deep red, her eyes swirling with confusion and budding emotion. Io jokingly suggests that he might just sleep in her room as well, prompting a panicked refusal from Lilia. He quickly relents, assuring her with a smile that he knows better than to actually do that. Io tells her he will wait, like a good boy, until she is ready to forgive him and let him in. He proposes that they start their trial marriage once more, beginning with a clean slate. Lilia sinks to the floor after he leaves, lamenting that she completely missed her chance to tell him the truth. She is left alone with her thoughts, wondering what she should possibly do next.